Not able to pay back their loans, the cancel culture generation wants their loans canceled, or forgiven, or simply written off. People who have no complaints paying $6 for a cup of coffee, $350 for sneakers, and $1,000 for a smartphone have turned their college debts into a crisis, if it should be called a crisis in the first place. The topic of student debt forgiveness draws opinion from economists, social activists, legislators, and everyone on the internet. The opinion varies depending on if you think of education as an investment or public good. College students are generally in an age group where they are particularly not accomplished to make the best decisions in life and may have never had financial responsibilities. So first things first, how do we explain to mostly 18 to 22-year-old students who can't decide what to have for dinner the possible financial risks of taking a debt? Because before student debt is anything, it is a debt. Societal pressure to get a college degree is greater than ever. Generations have been taught that higher education is a stepping stone and a ticket to future financial independence. But is it the only way? Believe it or not, ignorance of basic economics is the biggest reason for people demanding loan forgiveness, because most students simply don't understand that government has no money of their own. So let's put it simply. Government is the handler of the money that comes from the taxpayers. When a government prints money, it is borrowed money, and if the loan is forgiven, someone would still have to pay for it, which happens to be the taxpayers. Before we begin, a disclaimer first. We sympathize with students who have been in a situation where it has become difficult to pay off their loans. We think education is vital and we are not against it in any way, but we do believe that students should be made conscious to see the loans from an economic point of view so they could make better financial decisions. We will present the opinions of both the proponents and the opponents of student loan cancellation. First, let's hear why it should be canceled. People who think of education as a public good tend to say that it should be completely free or extremely inexpensive, funded by the taxpayer money so that no one goes under a debt just because they want to get an education. Some proponents also believe that getting a job should not be the only reason to get an education. Proponents of student loan cancellation argue that governments bail out corporations and billionaires now and then, so now is the time they could bail out the regular citizens. This would help student borrowers receive a similar type of financial relief previously only enjoyed by the elites. They also claim that if the government can put the taxpayer money in unnecessary wars and buying ridiculously expensive weapons, then why can't they make the education free? Student loan forgiveness has also been presented as a way to stimulate the economy, which is an idea that says that forgiving the loan will make the student spend and invest that money in the economy, giving it a necessary stimulation. Student loan cancellation is also supported by many as a way to close the racial wealth gap and as a way to help student loan borrowers of color who are said to be disproportionately affected by the loans. It is also proposed as a way to give students a better head start so they could contribute to the economy more quickly. Loan forgiveness also seems important because paying off the loans is not letting the younger generation to make other important decisions in their lives, like getting married and starting a family or buying a home. High loans are also associated with depression and anxiety, and forgiveness is linked to improving the mental health of the younger generation. Opponents of the student loan cancellation think of higher education as mostly an investment. The biggest criticism of cancellation is by those students who have already paid off their loans. Is it unfair to them? Should they be given any reparations? How do you tell students who have penny-pinched and lived through the most economical ways, skipping meals and working multiple jobs to pay off their debts while starting professional careers, only to be asked to pay for someone who has gone to all the spring breaks and never cared about their expenses? The second biggest criticism comes from the people who did not go to college because they could not afford it, or students who decided to go to a small state school instead of an expensive one to avoid the debt, only to see that the ones who had opted for the expensive colleges would be bailed out by the government on taxpayers' money. The third biggest criticism comes from the parents of the students who have provided for their children by facing tough times, sacrificing for decades, and working on multiple jobs so their children could have a better education than they had. They are particularly not interested in funding someone else's kid's trip to college. Another criticism comes from the people who have had to sign up for the military to pay for college fees. The aspect of fairness can't just be ignored. Opponents also believe that cancellation has been used by politicians as a way to buy votes. Politicians raising their voice for student loan forgiveness is like a person walking into a bar shouting, "Drinks on me, so who's buying?" Opponents also believe that economic stimulation through stimulus checks and unemployment benefits is not similar to economic stimulation through loan forgiveness. Opponents of the cancellation also bring up personal responsibility. Why are you demanding your loans to be forgiven that you have willingly borrowed and are legally and ethically obligated to pay back? Why do taxpayers subsidize your discretionary choice? Student loan forgiveness also programs your mind to see debt in a different way than others. While some people can see debt differently and end up earning more off their debts, others struggle with it. Debts in general are certainly not for everyone. If the government is ready to forgive student loans, should they also forgive other forms of loans like mortgage loans and credit card loans? What if the mortgage loan borrowers want a specific amount waived off their obligations? They also argue that one-time forgiveness does not solve anything. It sends a wrong message to everyone and future students that they have the right to get the college experience and expect a bailout. It also makes the students more irresponsible as they will expect more bailouts in their professional careers instead of facing their problems. After graduation, that time of your life is when you are more likely to take risks compared to 10 or 20 years after that. But if your first target is to pay off the debts by going for a job, then it kills the passion for innovation and entrepreneurship. If the bailout happens and the government somehow decides to make education free forever, how many students will choose to keep on getting more education because it's free? Because college life is certainly more fun than the life that comes after it. How do we decide who can repay and how much one can repay? What about the students who have enrolled in programs that make them qualify for higher paying jobs like law, medical, and business and so on, that makes them repay their loans relatively more easily? Opponents of the cancellation have argued that loan forgiveness is invariably advantageous to wealthy student loan borrowers. Opponents argue that one-time cancellation is just a band-aid solution, and the fact that this topic has become a debate is only encouraging more people to sign up for college in hopes that the government will bail them out. Opponents also argue that college degree holders are supposed to do better financially compared to the ones who have only gone to high schools or who haven't gone to any schools at all. Why a more expensive college of your choice is not good enough to land you a job? Was it a bad investment to begin with? Or did they graduate with a degree that has negligible jobs and has zero value in the market? Why has it become so daring to say that some degrees aren't worth it without drawing criticism? Sure, it's great if you are passionate about a topic, can pay for it, and not expect to monetize your field of interest. But why can't we say that some degrees have no value in the job market and some degrees pay more than others? Can we make the students aware that there is nothing wrong with treating their college program as a product or service and expecting a better return on investment by choosing better? Opponents argue that if you are passionate about something, then you can always go to a public library. But you can't become an engineer or medical doctor by just going to a library because such education does require hands-on experience and practice. On the other hand, we have degrees like math and programming that can still be learned in a library or on your own if you are disciplined about it, but they still require a degree. Although, big tech corporations have already started the practice of hiring competent programmers even if they haven't gone to a college. Governments involved in the country's student loan programs treat all majors and colleges equally. Whether you get a computer engineering degree from Stanford or some unknown art school with a degree that ends in studies, like gender studies, the government treats you the same because it would be considered unfair if someone suggests otherwise. Many of these programs have courses taken by the students as electives to get easy A's. Students who go through these degrees are constantly lied to that they will get great jobs. These students end up going back to their parents' basement that is stripping them away of their independence as well as their dignity, which is so sad to see. Opponents argue that if the government wants to indulge in loan cancellation and free education for the sake of the economy, then at least they should make it targeted. While students, the government, and taxpayers are all arguing about student loan cancellation, very few are highlighting the increasing cost of college education that remains unaddressed. College tuition has become absurdly expensive in the last couple of decades, and educational institutes seem like corporate entities instead of alma maters. Whether you think of your college program as a product service or not, the educational institutes think of it as one. How do we fix the issue of rising tuition costs? Private universities are for-profit businesses, and greed is a factor in any business. But in a free market, prices should decrease if more businesses compete with each other. But that's not what's happening. Private colleges were thought to make the degrees end up in fewer hands, while public colleges were supposed to offer education for free or inexpensively. Student loans were supposed to be a hybrid, but it's not working. In such a setup, what happens if the debt gets cancelled? The students would be happy, but is it going to solve the reasons that have caused this crisis in the first place? What about the students yet to enroll in colleges? Loan forgiveness would make more students sign up for the college that will result in higher demand. Higher demand results in higher prices. That means colleges would be hiking up the price even more out of greed and also to accommodate more students as they know they are guaranteed to get paid. How would the government continue to keep on canceling the debt forever on taxpayers' money? Governments lending money to students for private education is one of the reasons for colleges racking up the price, and the government seems like just another loan company that charges interest. The cost of the education is much higher than the outcome students would receive once they try to find a job, so we have a high inflation problem in the student loan business. Universities can't promise a high-earning job after graduating. Colleges are struggling to stay relevant. That's why education has become a secondary factor, and instead party pools and the college experience is what's sold. Students are not taught how to make better financial decisions. Instead, they are offered lazy rivers and luxuries to cope with their anxieties and depression of student life. Colleges, with their ideological biases, are accused of being factories of social activists. They are accused of creating majors that have no value in the market, and the people studying them have no real-world knowledge or experience. Colleges have stopped producing scholars. Instead, they are producing comrades who feel entitled to have everything for free by trending hashtags on social media, and the demand for student loan forgiveness stems from that. How about we start by lowering the interest rates charged on the student loans? Because no one should be paying back for 10 years or 20 or 25 years for a 4-year program. How about students are offered income-driven repayments? How about we try to make education more available but more affordable? How about we don't push the narrative that a college degree is the only way to make it in the future? If the student loan is handled by the government, then it's a legal contract between students and the government. And with any reasonable contract, both parties should see some risks involved. But in this particular case, the government has no risks of any sort. They are lending taxpayer money and profiting with interest rates. How about we allow the students to claim bankruptcy on student loans just like any other types of loans, because they are one illness away from bankruptcy anyway? How about we practice empathy, where some students are not able to pay back their loans because they have gone through some serious illness or permanent disability that has halted them from finding a job, let alone working on one? Government should not be knocking on the doors of these people while also talking about blanket loan forgiveness for everyone. How about we create a strict legal process with reviews to lower or eliminate cases of people trying to scam and misuse the bankruptcy options? Private loan companies and banks competing with each other to provide better loan services are also a great way to fix the issue. Unlike the government, these entities would be more concerned about getting their money back, so they would offer it to fewer people. They would also offer loans for those programs that are more likely to land you a job. Lower demand for other degrees would also push the colleges to lower their prices. How about we make the politicians not talk about loan forgiveness during the election campaigns for votes? How about we stop the politicians to not make the students' dream to just walk away from their obligations? How about the government act as a role model for students by lowering their debts first? How about we make the students know the game they are playing so they could make better financial decisions? We hope that you have liked the video. Please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing the video. We would try to reply to everyone in the comment section. Thank you for watching.